Salutations everyone, and welcome to the Resident Evil Gaming tier list. So this will be an unedited tier list. I will probably do a lot of rambling here. The last time I did a tier list was the Super Mario Bros. Tier list. That went really well. This was a tier list that a lot of people requested me to make. Simply because I've played nearly every Resident Evil game. I have a lot of knowledge in a lot of the Resident Evil games. Now, there is a couple that I've played but I've never beaten, simply because either it really sucked ass or I lost motivation to complete it. But I can say that I've played about 95% of the Resident Evil games that have been created. There is a couple mobile games I never played. I know there was a Resident Evil Degeneration mobile game that came out, and it was kind of made in like the style of old school Resident Evil 4, but I never played that. I saw someone play it. I never played it. There's other games that were like a limited play. I never played those. That's why I say 95%. So keep in mind, this is my take on Resident Evil. I'm a very old school kind of guy. So with that out of the way, let's go ahead and get this started. So we're going to start off with Resident Evil Director's Cut, also known as the regular Resident Evil. This one's still iconic still to this day. People will play this game. However, people tend to play the remake more. This was what kind of put Resident Evil on the map. As people may know, Resident Evil, specifically the first one, it was inspired to be made by an old game called Home Sweet Home. I played that game. It hasn't aged very well, but you can definitely tell that there was a lot of inspiration toward, Resident Evil being created by that particular inspiration. When it comes to Resident Evil, its difficulty is set based on the character that you choose. I would say normal mode is with Jill, hard mode is with Chris. There is differences between the way that Jill plays versus how Chris plays. There's different events that can happen as well. So yeah, it put Resident Evil on the map, and I believe that Resident Evil 1 deserves B tier. Also, some people consider Resident Evil 1 to be one of the hardest Resident Evil games made. There is a little bit of debate toward that. I might talk about that later, but all in all, I believe Resident Evil 1 regular deserves B tier. Resident Evil 1 Remake. This is considered to many as the greatest remake ever created of a Resident Evil game. It enhances Resident Evil 1 in almost every way. Adds a lot of new things, adds a lot of new lore. It's kind of the same when it comes to the difficulty, like in Resident Evil 1, normal mode, Jill, hard mode, Chris. There's a lot of added stuff, like I said, and also they gave the ability to unlock costumes, which is pretty cool. There's also an invisible mode where you can fight invisible enemies, and yeah, it was really good when it first came out. I believe, though, it belongs in A tier. I'm going to explain why. So, a lot of people in the Resident Evil community will say that Resident Evil 1 Remake is one of the best remakes ever made. I do agree that it is a great remake. However, it is a Resident Evil game I don't play as much. Keep in mind, this is my opinion. Everyone's entitled to their own opinion. Opinions are like assholes. Everyone has one. But Resident Evil 1 Remake, it's so much better than the first one. And it's really good in challenge runs. I've watched people do randomizers with Remake. Very entertaining. However, I don't play Remake as much. I don't play Resident Evil 1 regular as much. I still like them. But you can definitely tell that Resident Evil 1 Remake is better than the original. So I'm just putting it like that. Resident Evil 2 original. So Resident Evil 2 was the first Resident Evil game I ever played. It blew my mind that it was originally a 2-disc set. I also really love the Nintendo 64 version with the EX files. It's really, really, really fun. I like the fact that there is a lot of mods out there for the PC version, specifically Source Next, that keep this game relevant, because I still consider Resident Evil 2 and even Resident Evil 3 Nemesis to be two of the best Resident Evil games I've ever played, for different reasons. Now, because of the fact that it was one of the first Resident Evil games I ever beat, and also it left a lasting impression on me, I'm putting it at S tier. Some people of the new age will probably disagree with me because of the whole tank control situation, the fact that you don't really know off the bat which disc to start with. Some people, a lot of people usually start with Leon, and then they go to Claire, even though technically you're supposed to start with Claire first, then Leon, because of the whole sequence of storyline based situations. I love the beginning of Resident Evil 2. I like the story. A lot of the boss fights are fun. And like I said, there's a lot of mods. A lot of people that create mods and even randomizers. Hell, there's one of the first randomizers I ever watched was BioRand. It is a very, very famous right now randomizing software that can take some of the original games and make them randomized. The two that I watch the most is Resident Evil 2 and Resident Evil 3. I watch Resident Evil 2 a little bit more because it's a little bit more stable and you are not being chased by a whole horde of Nemesis. Or is it Nemesi? I don't know. I'll let you guys be the judge of that. But I love Resident Evil 2. I love the different guns that you can get for both Leon and Claire. Very, very fun. And I recommend people to play Resident Evil 2. It can be very lenient depending on which difficulty setting that you start off with. So yeah. But now we're going to get to Resident Evil 3 Nemesis. Resident Evil 3 Nemesis is an S tier. Resident Evil 3 Nemesis, in my opinion, is a great prequel/sequel of Resident Evil 2. Because the first events of Resident Evil 3 happened before Resident Evil 2. And then when you get around to like the Clock Tower version of Resident Evil 3, well, Clock Tower part of Resident Evil 3, is when it becomes a sequel. It's absolutely crazy. Because you have Nemesis chasing after you everywhere. You never truly know what's going to happen because there is a decision-making system in the game. And it does change events that happen in the game for you. Even some of the locations can have different loot depending on the, decisions that you make in the game. I love the when you get the special key, the boutique key, you can change your outfit. It even has one of my favorite outfits, which is the Regina outfit from Dino Crisis. Very, very fun. So Resident Evil 3 Nemesis, I play that a lot in my off time, just like Resident Evil 2. So yeah. Resident Evil Survivor. I've played Resident Evil Survivor a couple times. It's technically in first person. It's very cheesy. It's very, very corny as well. It's not a bad game, though. It's really not a bad game at all. It just takes a little bit of getting used to. I guess you could say, kind of in a way, it was like the prototype idea of making Resident Evil first person. It's not really that bad, to be fair, though. It's a pretty decent game. I would probably put that with Resident Evil 1 Original. It has a lot of the same limitations as the first Resident Evil, except in first person. Has a little bit of a rail shooter type of feel, but it's not a rail shooter. I think it's good. I think it's a really, really good game. You should, play it at least once in your life. Because I dig it. Resident Evil Code Veronica / Code Veronica X. This is going to go up there with Resident Evil 1 Remake. Resident Evil Code Veronica X can be considered a very, very hard game to a lot of newcomers. Basically, Claire gets kidnapped. She's on an island. She meets a man named Steve. Well, more of a boy, but we're going to call him a man in this particular conversation. She meets up with a man named Steve. We're trying to figure out what's going on. Everybody's become zombie. We're trying to escape the island. Things happen. Chris Redfield also makes an appearance in the game. Very, very fun how they introduce Chris Redfield and how you play as him. Really, really fun. A lot of the side things that you can do in the game. There's a battle mode. Very, very fun. You can definitely tell that they were going in a different direction when it came to the graphics of the game. I guess you could say this was kind of like the first, step into what was going to be making Resident Evil 1 Remake. Very, very fun game, though. It's a very hard game to speedrun. However, it is a fun game to play. Especially if you like a lot of backtracking. You'll know when you know. Gaiden. I hate Gaiden. Gaiden's F for me. I despise Gaiden. It is a Game Boy Color game. I had some of my worst gaming moments with Resident Evil Gaiden. It basically has you playing as Barry Burton, and you're searching a ship for a girl. Quote unquote, Leon appears in the game. I'm not going to spoil it for you if you actually decide you want to play it. I hate this game. I'm never going to play this game ever again. So, yeah, that's Resident Evil Gaiden. Resident Evil Gun Survivor 2. I have actually played this. I've never finished it, but it is actually a decent title. It is a very forgotten title because it requires you to have the gun plug-in for the PlayStation. It's not canon. It has very, very weird story-based stuff that happens in it. I would probably give Gun Survivor 2 a C. It's not a bad game. It's mostly played for fun. Play it at least once in your life. Just play it at least once in your life. Resident Evil 0. So, Resident Evil 0 was a very interesting game when it came out. Originally, it was rumored to come out for the Nintendo 64. However, it came out for the GameCube. It kind of defined the GameCube. It was one of the first GameCube games that ever came out. One of the main things that people don't like about Resident Evil 0 is there is no item box. You have to put things on the ground. You can also soft lock when you play this, depending on the circumstances. You could leave the wrong item behind, and you'd have to start all over again. I'll say this. Hook shot. That's all you need to know. Alright, so where would I put Resident Evil 0? I'd probably put it at a high B. I would put it before Resident Evil 1/Director's Cut. I think that's only fair. Just simply because it's a good game, but with the limitations that it has, I just don't like it. However, I do love Wesker mode. Wesker mode is absolutely bonkers fun. Okay, so we got Resident Evil Dead Aim. So I used to not like this game because you could definitely tell that this game was kind of trying to capitalize off of Leon and Ada, but it's not Leon and Ada in this game. But a lot of people compare them to Leon and Ada. The story is a little bit weak to me. There was some pretty good mechanics in it. I wouldn't say I hate the game. I definitely don't hate it as much as Resident Evil Gaiden. But it's not a game that I would really play again. I'd probably put Dead Aim under Gun Survivor 2. It would be a D. I might play it, once in a blue moon if I just feel like playing a hidden gem. It's not a bad game. It's just not a game that I'd really play. Okay, so the Outbreak games. I absolutely love the Outbreak games. Resident Evil Outbreak, you can play them solo or you can play them online. Specifically, people like to play it online. There's even dedicated servers toward people that play Resident Evil Outbreak. It's a very, very fun game with people. Like, dead serious it is. Dead freaking serious it is. I would put both of the Outbreak games on B tier. Because as a co-op thing, it is so much fun. It is absolutely bonkers fun. There's even a lot of mods out there that do some funny stuff with Outbreak. It's hilarious. Some of the best content I've watched on YouTube and even Twitch has been with Outbreak. It's very fun. So yeah. Go check out Outbreak. It is kind of debated whether or not it is canon storyline stuff, but I'll leave you to the judge of that. Resident Evil 4 OG. So, this is a mixed bag with me. There's going to be a couple games here that a lot of people won't agree with that I like or dislike. Resident Evil 4, a lot of people consider Resident Evil 4 as the game that saved Resident Evil. It changed the outcome from horror survival mode to survival mode action. Resident Evil 4 OG isn't a bad game. But it's not my kind of game. I honestly like Resident Evil 4 Remake more, but we'll be getting the remake soon. I would probably put Resident Evil 4 OG low B. Because there is some really good things about it. The story is very nice. I feel that Remake fixed the story a little bit for me. I felt that there was too much stuff going on in Resident Evil 4 OG. I do like the costumes. I like the special weapons in it. I even like, some of the quote-unquote DLC stuff that happened with it. There was Assignment Ada. There was Separate Ways, which basically was more of like an asset flip when it came to those two DLCs. I like the DLCs for Remake more. They put more thought and preservation into the DLC for Resident Evil 4 Remake. But we'll be getting to Remake 4 later. But I think it deserves B tier. B tier's not bad. Alright. Resident Evil Umbrella Chronicles. I love Umbrella Chronicles. It is a very good game. Same with Dark Side Chronicles, because Dark Side Chronicles is right here. I'm going to put these both at A tier. I have really good memories with these two games. I played them on the Wii. No, you're going in A tier. I played them on the Wii. They are first-person rail shooters. Especially Umbrella Chronicles, because it digs deeper into the situations that happen with Wesker. There's even some missions on there that are never talked about in the other games. They're specifically in these two games. I like the models for the games. I even like the fact that when it comes to the partner situations with like Jill and Chris and Leon and Claire, they're together. They don't separate like in the other games. They're together. They're shooting things together. It's a fun little show. If you got a Wii, play them. I think you'll like them. They're even fun to grind achievements for. Very, very fun. So yeah. Alright, so Resident Evil 5. I'm not a fan of Resident Evil 5. I don't like Resident Evil 5. Back in the day, I would probably give this an F tier. But it is a very fun game to play in co-op. So for that particular situation, I'd probably give it a D. If it didn't have a good co-op situation, I would still keep it at F. Don't play Resident Evil 5 solo. It makes things very, very hard for you. Very action-oriented. It tried to capitalize on what was Resident Evil 4, but I felt it just really missed the mark for me. I just could not get into it. I could not. I have finished it, but I regretted playing it. So yeah. Mercenaries. D. I'll put that at D. Why not? Played it. It was okay. I felt it kind of boring, but that's just me. Revelations 1. Revelations 1. That is the one where you play as Jill. You can also play as Chris Redfield later on down the road. A lot of people don't like these games because of the co-op system. There isn't really a co-op system in Revelations 1. It does get introduced in Revelations 2, where you can have a co-op partner play with you. Revelations 1, it's a decent story. It did originally come out for the, I believe, 3DS, I believe. It was either 3DS or regular DS. So you could tell it kind of tried to go off of the same feel as the DS/3DS, but it was kind of missing the mark on it. People will play it because it's the beginning of the Revelation series. They're just side spin-offs. I would probably give Revelations 1 a very high C. I like the raid mode for Resident Evil Revelations. I do like the story for Revelations. I like the gun combinations that you can put together on your guns in Revelations. The controls could be better. The controls could be much better. There was way too many flashback scenes. It did have a decent mix of horror with action, but its sequel, which we will be talking about in just a little bit, completely fixed it for me. So speaking of that, Revelations 2. Revelations 2 has two scenarios. It has Claire and Moira Burton. Claire as in Claire Redfield, and Moira Burton, which is the daughter of Barry Burton. And then we have the second scenario, which is Barry Burton and Natalia. I love this game. The raid mode is very fun. You also have a co-op feature in it. Very, very fun. I recommend people to play Revelations 2. It has a really good horror aspect to it. It has a lot of interesting creatures. I'd say the only put-off, though, for it for me is some of the creatures that you have to kill have a bit of a gimmick to them. And if you don't have the right weapon for that said gimmick, it'll make things very, very hard. I love the harder difficulties for this game. And like I said, I love raid mode. Very, very fun. Revelations 2... is it as good as Resident Evil Remake and Code Veronica? I would not say no to that. This makes me now want to put Resident Evil 0 in the C tier. I might do that. I'm going to put Resident Evil 0 on C tier, and I'm going to put Revelations 2 on high B tier. I can dig that. Because I don't think Revelations 2 is on the same level as Resident Evil 0. I do not think so. I would definitely play Revelations 2 more than 0. But yeah. Operation Raccoon City. So this is another take that people will not agree with. I like playing Operation Raccoon City. I used to play it a lot on my Xbox 360. I have a lot of trophies stacked up for it. A lot of people don't like it, simply because it's not canon and it is very action oriented. You can play it with friends. It can be online co-op and stuff like that. I wouldn't say it's a bad game. It's a very repetitive game. Now, in terms of putting this on the list, though, I would put it at a high C tier. So, I know people will not like this take on it, but I do really like playing Operation Raccoon City, especially the DLCs. I liked playing them. Yes, it's very action oriented. Yes, it's shooty. Yes, it's third person. There's not really much of a horror thing to it, but it's fun. I think it's really fun. It like I said, it can be repetitive because, you know, sometimes the AI for your teammates can be kind of shit, but I'm able to adapt to it. It's definitely not as bad as Resident Evil 5, like, by a long shot. I would play Operation Raccoon City again if my Xbox Series X would let my Xbox One would actually let me stream it. I would totally play it. But yeah, Resident Evil 6. So when this is coming out, me and my best friend Mr. Rumble Roses are actually co-oping this game. I've beaten this game on the Xbox 360. If you play this solo, it's absolute shit. Basically, take the Resident Evil formula, make it action, survival, and pretend like it's being directed by Michael Bay. That's basically Resident Evil 6 in a nutshell. I like a lot of the character models. I like a lot of the weapons that you can get in it. Like, I love Leon's wing shooters. I love the fact that he can now hold 2 freaking handguns in his hands, and it's really, really fun. I love the fact that you can melee anytime you like. There is some jankiness to like a couple of the puzzles in the game. I am not a fan of Chris's campaign. My favorite campaigns, though, would probably be Ada and maybe Jake and Sherry. Leon's is alright. I just don't like Helena. Or Helena. Whichever you want to call her. I don't like her. In terms of Chris's storyline, it is very, very hard. You can definitely tell that all the campaigns are connected to each other in some way. Like I said, if you play it by yourself, you're going to have a very rough time. But if you have a co-op partner, it can be very fun. I would probably put this maybe between Revelations 1 and Gun Survivor 2. So yeah, you know, there's that. Umbrella Corps, that is shit. I played a few missions in Umbrella Corps when it first came out. It was absolute shit. Do not ever play it. The fact that it's considered a Resident Evil game is just a sin. It is an absolutely terrible freaking sin. We're not going to get into that. So, Resident Evil 7, also known as the second game to save the Resident Evil franchise. This brought Resident Evil back to its core, which was horror survival. I love the first 2/3 of the game. When you get to the boat section and going into the mines, that's when it gets the feeling from me that Capcom ran out of ideas. So in terms of that, it's going to get a very high A tier. So, like I said, The first 2/3 of the game, if it stayed like that completely, it would have been S tier for me. That's the only thing that blocks it from being S tier, is the last 2 areas in Resident Evil Village. I love a lot of the DLCs for Village, but they don't save me from getting right to that S tier. I usually play Resident Evil Village in October for Halloween content. It is also a very important game in terms of me getting my platinums in PlayStation 4. It was the first platinum I ever got in PlayStation 4 when I got it. Madhouse difficulty is so much fun, but it is very hard. And like I said, the DLCs, some of them can be hit or miss, but a lot of them can be really, really fun. Love the free one of Not a Hero with Chris Redfield. That one was really, really fun. I love the first 2/3 of the game, like I said, of Resident Evil 7. But when it came to the boat section and the mines, I got very frustrated with it. So yeah. I'm gonna go ahead and get Resistance out of the way. Resistance is shit. It's just absolutely bad. People wanted this to be a new Outbreak game, but we got Resistance, and it didn't last long. It did not last long. It was bad. Even still to this day, it is nearly impossible to even get a lot of the trophies now from Resistance, because nobody really plays it. So there's that. Reverse is shit. Reverse tried to capitalize on the Dead by Daylight formula a little bit. They did not succeed. There's a reason why you can't really play Reverse anymore. Because people didn't like it. People didn't want to play it. I get it. When I, played a little bit of it, I didn't like it. We're just going to end it there. Resident Evil 2 Remake. So, Resident Evil 2 Remake, it's also a very high A tier. I would put that beside Resident Evil 7. And I'm going to explain why. So I love the first scenario for Resident Evil 2 Remake. It is so fun. The problem is there is not a legit second scenario, and it still bugs the crap out of me. Like, yes, you can play what's called a second scenario, but it's completely a flip on what the second scenario was for Resident Evil 2 OG. Like, yeah, I just... It was frustrating. It was frustrating. If you're going to play Resident Evil 2 Remake, just play the first scenario, and when you do that, and you want to play again as another character, don't do the second scenario, just do another first scenario with the alternative second character. Just do that. The DLCs were actually pretty fun. I enjoyed the DLCs, especially the one for Kendos. Kendos was really, really fun, and I liked Ghosts as well. And there's some pretty good challenges there too. The tofu stuff is pretty fun too. And of course, Fourth Survivor, also known as Hunks, one of my favorites. I love it. It's going to go right beside Resident Evil 7. Resident Evil 3 Remake. So, I'm going to put this here. Is Resident Evil 3 Remake a bad game? No. Is it a $60 game? No. Is it a $50 game? No. Would I say it's a $30 game? Maybe. This felt like more of a DLC to Resident Evil Remake than its own standalone game. It was too short. It cut out a lot of the iconic areas that Resident Evil 3 had. And plus, they also ended up turning Nemesis into a giant dog. It's a dog. You'll know when you see it. Now, there are some people out there that will give absolute shit to Resident Evil 3. And I understand why they do. But a lot of it doesn't need to be poked at badly. Like I said, it's not a bad game, but it's not a good game either. There is a lot of good things in Resident Evil 3 Remake. I like the model for Jill. I like what they did with Jill. They made Jill more confident while still going through the PTSD of being in the mansion in Resident Evil 1. I like what they've done with Carlos. They made Carlos more relatable and, not just a flirtatious Hispanic man like he was in Resident Evil 3. So where would I put this on the list, though? So it's definitely not F tier, and it's definitely not D tier. It's none of that at all. It's not S tier. It's not A tier. So it belongs between B and C. I'd probably put it at C, but I would put it between Operation Raccoon City and Revelations 1. Because it's kind of that thing where, would I play Revelations 1 again? No, not over Revelations 2. Would I play Resident Evil 3 again? Only if I wanted to platinum it. But I would definitely want to play Resident Evil 2 Remake more. But that's just me. I'd say when it came to Resident Evil 3 Remake as well, a lot of it was rushed. That's why it was short. There wasn't much exploration in Resident Evil 3 Remake like there was in Resident Evil 3 Original. And this isn't just me saying that they completely cut out the whole clock tower and stuff like that, even though I am a little bit salty about that, but I got over that. There's a lot of good stuff about Resident Evil 3 Remake, but there's a lot of bad stuff about it. I'd say, though, if you would have had me make this list after I beat Resident Evil 3 Remake the first time, I would have probably given it a D or a high F tier. But now, it's a different feeling to me. So yeah, I believe that it deserves to be in C tier. Resident Evil Village. So I like Resident Evil Village. One thing I didn't mention about Resident Evil 3, Resident Evil 7, is you can definitely tell that it is a tribute to horror itself. There's a lot of interesting things in terms of like what's there that's tributes to old school horror. It's kind of the same for Village, but in a different aspect. So, like, for example, Lady Dimitrescu, she is vampiric. When it comes to oh my god, what's his name? Moreau. Moreau is technically the creature from the lagoon. When it comes to the girl with the doll, she's technically like a ghost or a marionette, which is also a thing when it comes to old school horror, specifically the ghost thing, because you never really notice she's there, and plus there's a lot of nightmare fuel in her part. When it comes to Heisenberg, you can definitely tell that he has a Frankenstein vibe to him. It's really, really nice. Now, is Village perfect? No, not by a long shot. Is Village a game I'd play more? Yes. I like the vibe of Village. It has a mixture of action horror, but also has a lot of survival horror in it as well. It's like a nice mix of both things, and a lot of it doesn't really overstay its welcome. Is there really anything I don't like about Village? I don't know. I don't really know if there's anything I don't like about Village. I can't really think of anything. Hell, I even like the twist that happens with Ethan, which I'm not going to reveal. I like the weapons that you can get. Oh my god. Do I want to put this in S tier, though? Because I'm trying to think. I can't really think of anything bad about it except for Mia. I don't like Mia. I can't stand Mia. I think for right now, I'm going to have to put Village at S. No. This is hard. I'll put Village at S tier for right now, but it'll be a low S for now. Maybe I'll think of something here in a little bit. Resident Evil 4 Remake. So, I actually love Resident Evil 4 Remake. I do remember when the actress for Ada got a lot of backlash for her voice acting. I didn't think she did a bad job. Was the Ada in Resident Evil 2 Remake better? Oh yeah, by a long shot. But I didn't hate the woman that did the voice for Ada. In terms of the story and the DLC, I love them. I love them to death. Oh my god, though. Okay, I want to change something around real quick. I want to do this. I'm going to put Village at high A tier, and I'm going to put 4 at high A tier. See, I don't know if Village deserves to be S tier to me. It's really hard when it comes to Resident Evil 4 Remake and Village, because there really isn't anything I can think of that's bad. I really don't know. I mean, aside from Village's Mercenaries mode, which I wasn't much of a fan of, I did a lot of challenges in Village too. Especially the knife only. That was hard, but it was fun. I did it with Chris's knife though. Oh man. This makes me want to add like an S plus now, but this is really hard. This is very, very hard. Okay, here's what I'll do. I will put 4 and Village at low S tier. The highest A tiers will go to 2 OD and 3 OG. Oh man, that is really hard. Because, like, if I was going to add another thing here, I think I'll just add another row. I'll just do that. Because this is really hard here. We'll do S plus. S plus will be here. It's the only way I can do this. It's the only way. It's the only way that I could see this even working. Because, like I said, I can't think of anything that I don't like about Village. Well, except for one. Except for one thing. But it's really just a nitpick from me. And that is doing Village of Shadows difficulty, but doing Heisenberg's fight. That made me want to give up trying to do Village of Shadows. That was so fucking hard. And it was simply because I couldn't heal in that boss fight. And it made me so angry. It was one of my biggest brick walls that I ran into. But if I do it like this, it'll work. So F tier will go to Gaiden, Umbrella Corps, Resistance, and Reverse. D tier, Dead Aim, Resident Evil 5, and Mercenaries. C tier is Operation Raccoon City, Resident Evil 3 Remake, Revelations 1, Resident Evil 6, Gun Survivor 2, Resident Evil 0. B tier, Revelations 2, Resident Evil 1 Original, Resident Evil Survivor, Resident Evil Outbreak and Outbreak File 2, Resident Evil 4 OG. A tier is Resident Evil 7, Resident Evil 2 Remake, Resident Evil 1 Remake, Code Veronica, Umbrella Chronicles, Darkside Chronicles. S tier, Village, and Resident Evil 4 Remake. And S plus tier is Resident Evil 2 OG and Resident Evil 3 OG. I can get behind that. And if there's people that, have their own thoughts and everything like that of what they would change for their tiers, put it down in the comments down below. I love hearing other people's opinions and stuff like that. Just understand that opinions are like assholes. Everyone has one. So, everyone's entitled to their own opinion, and I will respect your opinions. Just as long as you respect mine, of course. But, I can get behind that tier list. I can definitely get behind that. Yeah. All right. But, when you watch this, give it a like and everything. Like I said, leave a comment down below. Share it around if you like. Maybe you learned something new when it came to listening to me ramble about this tier list. But yeah, as always, everyone, thank you so much for watching. I am your friendly neighborhood gaming machine, and until I see everyone in the next video or live stream, take care, everybody.